Zoldan's here with us right now, CEO of Quantum Networks. This stuff is getting more and more prevalent. We heard it with Sony, we heard it with Lockheed Martin. I mean, we keep hearing people hacking. And as Shivani just reported, now we're going to have stuff out in the sky. To me, that's a piece of cake. So what's happening here?
So there are a lot of companies right now that are especially the military now, there's issues of vulnerability because, as Shivani said, we're now taking our most vital information and we're hosting it up in the cloud.
Right.
So we're turning over the keys and we're saying, hey, whether it's Amazon, whether it's data centers, whether it's these other companies out there that are holding the keys to our data, we're hoping that they're locking it down, and we're hoping that it's in a trustworthy place. Question is, what happens when you have these hackers, either domestically or overseas, that are sitting in front of their computer and trying to play games with it and trying to take that data from you?
Well, you bring up the military. I mean, Google had a big incident recently.
Correct.
Where they were just hacking right into military accounts.
Correct.
White House, potentially.
Correct.
So, if any schmo in college who has the extra time on hand can figure this out...
They'd have to be a very, very smart schmo. But a group of intelligent schmoes, there's no question about it, can go ahead and start hacking away at this. And it's trial and error, too. You have a lot of people that are attempting to. These are all the people that are just getting caught. Could you imagine all the attempts or the denial of services that are happening right now?
Well, right, which brings us to electronic warfare and cyber attacks and things like that. I mean, I, for one, think it's a huge issue. I think that the next time we are gravely attacked here, it will be somehow through our cyber system.
Correct, correct. And this is what it's going to be, I think, probably for the next 100 or so years, because the concept of the battlefield, of people dying, and it's changing. And now it's actually, you're not talking about human casualties, but you're sort of talking about digital casualties. And the warfare right now is almost online. You're talking about cyber attacks. You're talking about electronic warfare, where they're taking over the spectrum, and they're doing some very, very sophisticated high-end things.
But it's arguably more crippling to a society. And you hate to lose lives,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's different.
But to shut down the banking system.
It's huge. It's huge.
And no one has access to cash.
How about power plants? And how about the electrical grid? And how about nuclear facilities too, which we saw in Iran?
Right. I mean, you could argue that is, more crippling to a country than than the bloodshed that we're experiencing right now.
Correct, correct. Because now you can affect actually, hundreds of millions of lives with a flip of a switch. So you're talking about the banking system that you're crippling, you're talking about the electrical grid, you're talking about water facilities, you're talking about power plant. I mean, it goes on and on.
So are we vulnerable to all this?
There's no doubt about it. But I think what we're going to start seeing is the U.S. government is going to start upping up their game in terms of putting an enormous amount of money in security, because I think they've been extremely lax up until now, because the concept of hacking and electronic warfare and taking down airspace and spy it's relatively new. So now we're seeing this as a very, very real threat that's happening today.
Okay, so what has to happen? Do we need legislation? Do we need like a cyber security task force? I mean, what do we need?
Well, the government's working on that, and there's actually bodies. There's a National Security Agency, which has upped their game tremendously right now in terms of attempting to protect, our entire digital infrastructure. So I think we're going to see probably less spending on hard spending on actual, tanks, and probably more, we'll call them digital tanks right now. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that.
But so that must lead, just to bring this back to the business angle, the companies that are creating these products are probably pretty solid investments. Are you seeing that kind of stuff come your way?
We are.
Are you investing in these companies?
We're not at right now, because there's a lot of companies right now that are focused on digital security. So the question is, there's going to be a lot of companies that are, yeah, and at the end of the day, you're going to have 3, 4, or 5, big 800-pound gorillas in this space. But definitely in terms of where the industry is headed, it's all going to be about